And a pleasant good evening, everyone. Welcome to our weekly Bible class. I'm your host and teacher, Pastor Lyndon Williams. Let's begin with prayer. Father in heaven, thank you so much today for all that you have done. We ask now, dear Lord, that as we study your word, your spirit would be there to enlighten and to guide us along the way. Bless us now, I ask, in Jesus' precious name. Amen. So, what we're looking at this evening, I'll be showing you some snippets, I call it, of prophecy from the books of Daniel and Revelation. And what you will get to see is how God has spoken to his servants, the prophets, to reveal the future and the way in which he has done it. I'll give you just a few tidbits on some of the things that when we bring them together, we begin to see how there's a message in the scriptures about prophecy. So let's just hop right into it. And so, as you can see, this is an artist's impression of what it will look like at the second coming. And you will notice, and I think this artist did a pretty good job. On my big screen, I can see pictures of the angels blowing their trumpets, a picture of someone's conception of Jesus coming in the clouds of heaven. You have angels bringing children to their parents. Okay, right here, taking a child, presenting him to parents, the parents. You have individuals from various nationalities or races, as we would sometimes say. Here you have the city over here. You have I guess, the graveyard over here. They've lit up the sky. So this is a pretty good one. I really like this one. And what you have on your screen now, the 2300-day prophecy. And we'll look a little bit at that, where Daniel was told unto 2,300 days, 2,300 evenings, morning, someone says, then shall the sanctuary be cleansed. Daniel 8 and 14. And here they show you when it would start, from the commandment to restore and rebuild Jerusalem, which was given in Ezra here. And it said 70 weeks were appointed to the Jewish people. That 70 weeks would end in AD 34. Now there's no year zero. So if you do it with a calculator, make sure a little something different there. And then in the middle of the week, the Messiah would cause the sacrifice and obligations to cease, etc., etc., etc. Messiah was cut off in the middle of the week, 3.5 years here. And then when we come another 3.5 years, AD 34, and it's anticipated or it is believed that when Stephen was stoned, Christians were scattered, Jewish probation ended. We also find the Apostle Paul says, it was necessary that the gospel first be preached unto you. But seeing that you have rejected it, says, lo, we turn to the Gentiles. And that is what happened there. They scattered, and as they went preaching the gospel. At the bottom of your screen here, it shows you Ezekiel 4:6. Lord says, I've given you each day for a year. And when you calculate it from the time of, let's start from here, BC 47, right on down, 2300, bring us to about 1844. We believe this is when Christ began the second phase of his ministry. Hebrews talks quite a bit about the two apartments, and I'll show you that in a later on. So let me get my mouse back. Okay, here we go. Now, if you want to learn some more about these, you can come to the Maranatha Church, October 11 to November 1st. Monday, Friday nights off. We'll also stream live on YouTube every evening, except for those 2 evenings at 7 p.m. So the goal is 7 to 8:15. That's my goal. 8:15 should be singing your theme song and leaving. Now, let's get started. Daniel chapter 2. And even perhaps before I go there, the book of Daniel talks about how God allowed the Babylonians. He prophesied about it in Jeremiah. As a matter of fact, from Habakkuk, that the Babylonians would come and capture the Jewish people to punish them for their sins. Well, Nebuchadnezzar did that, and he was feeling like because of his military might and his gods that he was able to do these things. And guess what? When you look at it, God gave him this dream, but his wise men could not understand the dream. So they could not recall the dream. Nebuchadnezzar could not remember the dream. His wise men could not remember the dream. Definitely, they could not interpret it. All the wise men were sent to be killed. They rounded up Daniel and his friends because they had spent some time, 3 years, I think, in what I call the University of Babylon, studying arts, science, magic, etc., etc. And Daniel says, hey, give me some time. He went, he and his friends, they prayed to God. It was revealed to Daniel in a dream in the night. He went to the king, and not only was Daniel able to tell him what his dream was, Daniel was able to interpret the dream. And we find in Daniel 2 where he tells him, the statue, this is what the statue looked like. It had a head of gold. So you are that head of gold, referring to the Babylonian Empire. Then we see the chests and arms of silver, representing the Medes and Persians who overtook the Babylonians. We read about that in Daniel chapter 5, when Belshazzar was killed and when he saw the handwriting on the wall. The Medes and Persians were outside breaking in even at that time. The thighs, the leg and thighs of bronze, or the belly and thighs of bronze, representing Greece. Alexander the Great came back to get revenge on the Medes and Persians for attacking Greece, even though they did not succeed. And he was so successful. He conquered the then known world, that the worlds that he knew of, places like China he didn't know about, or he probably would have tried to go there also. He left no successor when he died at the age of about 32, 33, somewhere up in there. And part of the reason why he died is because of his lifestyle, constantly on military conquests. It says that he once drank the cup about 6 quarts of alcohol. One go, 6 quarts. That's a gallon and a half. Just drank it down. Greece was succeeded by Rome. And during the time of Christ, the Rome ruled the world. But here's what happened. Here's the significance of it before I move on. When the Babylonians came, the Jews, the other 10 tribes had been captured and scattered by the Assyrians. This is why on the day of Pentecost, they came from all over the world, the then known world, speaking different languages, because they scattered them in hopes they would lose their identity, forget their language and native language, forget their faith. And it is believed that the synagogue was established when they were scattered throughout the world of that time. So it is said that someone says, wherever there are 10 males come together to study the scriptures. And it is believed that's how the synagogue was started. So I said that to say this. By the time as the Jews were worshiping idols, doing all sort of stuff, when they came out of Babylonian captivity and they were freed by the Medes and Persians, idolatry was gone. Sabbath breaking was gone. I think it was Nehemiah or Ezra, one of them, who told them, lock the city gates and tell them, don't hang around the gates. I'll come and I'll deal with you. The priests who had married all these foreign wives, he said, get rid of them. We were sent into captivity because our stubbornness. Now we need to amend our ways. And so by the time as the Messiah came, get this, the knowledge of the true God had been preserved because the Jews had started turning back to God. Because remember, Christ had to learn, just like any other child, about the sacred scriptures. He would have learned some of it in the synagogue. Others he would have been taught at the feet of his parents on his mother's lap, etc. So that knowledge was there. And then, of course, the feet of iron and clay, the 10 nations which each took a little piece out of Rome, the Anglo-Saxons or the English, which would be modern day, I guess you'd say part of the United Kingdom came, took away a piece of the Roman Empire, and Rome was unable to take it back. The Germans took off a piece, the Swedes, the Franks, or the French, everybody took off a piece. Because one time it was said that the sun never sets on the Holy Roman Empire because her influence extended all the way into Africa. Okay. The next thing that would happen would be a stone was cut out of the mountain without hands in Nebuchadnezzar's dream, which struck the image on the feet. So it struck it on its feet, which means it would have fallen over, crushed it to powder, and scattered it. That stone became a great mountain and filled the earth, talking about the kingdom of God and how God would be the one to set up his kingdom and bring an end to all of these earthly kingdoms. Daniel also tells you that the nations would try to come back together to form one big nation and would not work. Hitler tried it, Napoleon tried it, I think it's a Chamberlain also tried it, but none of them were able to unite Europe. Okay. Another thing I would have you to be aware of, this is an artist's conception. With Babylon, the walls of Babylon were so thick, they could race horses around it on chariots, 2 apiece, I think it was. I haven't read it for a while. And it was an outer wall, there was an inner wall. In between the 2 walls was where they threw their garbage. So if you came with your battering rams and broke through the first wall, you know what you would be met with? A whole lot of rotting food and whatever else. Maybe even some sewer, who knows? That's what you would meet coming down on top of you. Babylon was secured as far as she was concerned. C. Mervyn Maxwell points out that it is said that Babylon had enough food to last her for about 20 years inside the city. Because normally what would happen, they had walled cities, an army would come and surround the city. So you could not go out into the fields to gather grain, to gather food, to feed your sheep or whatever. Babylon had enough food, Maxwell says, the last 20 years. The river Euphrates ran underneath the walls of Babylon, which means that she had water to drink. What did Darius the Mede do? He waited until it was low tide. Had this man, or maybe they started digging, I would assume, digging some sort of a basin, let's call it. And at low tide, I guess he would have opened it and let the water flow in there at low tide. So he made it even lower by taking away some of the water. Then it is believed that God waded through the water, went underneath the wall of Babylon. Remember, the water flowed underneath the wall. But before he did that at high tide, what it would mean is you would have to swim underneath, and that would have alerted someone, or for an army to do that, all of them to do that, it would have created a problem. I don't know how wide the channel was for the water to flow under, but it was sufficient. So someone apparently waded underneath the water, under the gate, in the water under the gate, went in. Maxwell says, beat up the guards who were there, probably half drunk, opened the gates, and the entire army flooded in. And that night, Belshazzar was killed, and Darius the Mede, according to Daniel chapter 5, took the throne. That was the end of the Babylonian Empire. And in Daniel chapter 7, in Daniel's vision, which, if I remember correctly, was in the first year of Belshazzar, a part of the vision was he saw these great beasts, the lion, the bear, the leopard, then the dragon, we call it the nondescript beast, with iron claws and whatever. But then he saw the Son of Man coming to the Ancient of Days, coming on a cloud. Bible students refer to this as the cloud rider. So the cloud rider came to the Ancient of Days. And when you read Daniel 7, you would see this would have to be someone other than an angel. Because when Jesus said in Matthew, when the high priest said, I adjure you by the living God that you tell us whether or not you are the Christ. And the answer was, hereafter shall you see the Son of Man coming in the clouds of heaven. And he tore his robe as a sign of horror, to say, how dare you identify yourself with this person who came to the Ancient of Days, who received all of these, what would you call it? Who was receiving power. They understood, they knew their Bible, they understood exactly what Jesus was getting at. I'm going to read it for you. Daniel 7:13, I was watching in the night visions, and behold, one like the Son of Man, New King James Version, coming with the clouds of heaven. He came to the Ancient of Days, and they brought him near before him. Then to him, talking about the Son of Man, was given dominion and glory and a kingdom, that all peoples, nations, and languages should serve him. His dominion is an everlasting dominion which shall not pass away, and his kingdom the one which shall not be destroyed. So obviously this was no ordinary individual. And that is something we need to take note of. And they understood this. The high priest understood this. And so he said, how dare you identify yourself as the cloud rider, the one who came to the Ancient of Days, who was given a kingdom and dominion that lasts forever. So they understood this whole concept. So the concept I'm getting at of what more than one person of the Godhead was better understood in Daniel than it was in Genesis when God said, let us make man. You find the concept here again in the book of Daniel. And then we come again, because Jesus says, you will not see me until you say, blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. I had this impression again of Christ coming in the clouds of heaven. And when you see this picture, I want you to think about what you hear at funerals. 1 Thessalonians chapter 4, verses 13 and onward. Lord himself shall descend from heaven with a shout, with the voice of the archangel and the trump of God. Dead in Christ shall rise first. This artist was able to capture that idea in this one painting. And that is something we should all look forward to, we should all pray for, etc. And then you have the 2300-day prophecy found in the books of Daniel, chapter 8 and verse 9. And here is just the 70 years allocated to the Jews, 70 weeks for the rebuilding of Jerusalem, its walls, its temples, etc. Then for another 62 weeks, they would have a chance to get their act together. They were appointed 70 weeks. So 70 times 7, remember we said a day equals a year. 70 times 7 is 490. Ezekiel chapter 4, verse 6 tells us that one day equals a year. And so for 490 years were allocated to the Jews after they were allowed to go back to their home, and the command was given to rebuild Jerusalem. Did they get it right? No, because they killed the Son of God, the one to whom all of their sacrifices, the entire service, Jewish society was pointing forward to. And why did they kill him? He did not fit the description that they thought he should. He was not from the priestly line. He did not attend the school of the rabbis. He had no pedigree. He was poor. He's a humble carpenter. So they rejected him. And he did not do things the way they wanted him to. And the reason why I bring that out is that do we fall into a similar situation sometimes where we reject the message of God because it doesn't come with the packaging that we feel it should? I just want you to think about that. It doesn't come in the packaging, so we say, I don't want nothing to do with it, not interested, etc., etc. And that is something we need to consider. Let's go a little further. We're going into Revelation. Now, I hope you can see this, but here in Revelation, look at what's happening here. And Revelation was written in a particular way. By the way, I did not put that slide in. I'll probably add it in afterwards. When you look at Revelation, the first one shows you what is called a victorious introduction, a scene with the temple setting, and that is Christ walking in the midst of the 7 golden lampstands. King James says candlestick, but candlestick gives you the wrong impression as to what we understand a candlestick is. It's really lampstand. We went back to the original language that the Jews whom John wrote to would understand. The lampstand that was in the sanctuary burning, always burning, never allowed to go out. And so before each of these saints, here we have in B, under number 1, is the message to the 7 churches. But before John saw the message of the 7 churches, he saw the glorified Christ as high priest. The garment that he had on was something similar to what the priests would wear, with the golden sash. So look at the next one. Before he went through the seals, he saw the vision of the seals in Daniel chapter 6. What did he see? A vision in heaven, the throne room in heaven, chapters 4 and 5, and God being worshipped with the elders and the living creatures, etc. And so what we're saying is this: 1, Revelation brings out the fact that the work of Jesus was still ongoing in the sanctuary system. John's, however, his attention was directed upward. I call that the vertical, to heaven, what was happening in heaven to strengthen him for the visions he would see on earth, which we see in chapter 6. After the vision of chapter 6, you have a spotlight on last day events. Daniel chapter 7. And what does that deal with? Let me come back here, quickly give you. John asks a question, or the question was asked: the great day of God's wrath has come. Who will be able to stand under the opening of the 6th seal? And it's answered in the 7th seal. Sorry, Revelation chapter 7, where John saw the 4 angels under the... Let me slow down again. The question was asked, who is able to stand? John then sees 4 angels standing at the 4 corners of the earth, holding the winds of the earth, that the wind should not blow on the earth or the sea or any tree. Then he says he saw another angel ascending from the east, having a seal of God, and he cried to the 4 angels, saying, do not harm the earth, the sea, or the trees, till we have sealed the servants of our God on their foreheads. So this is an answer just before the second coming. According to the sequence of the vision, John saw, says, who will be able to stand? The 144,000. Because why? They were sealed in their forehead. You will see this further when you go into Revelation chapter 13. And so in chapter 7, which is the interlude on last day events, remember, an interlude is like a break. Who will be able to stand? 144,000. Then when we come to chapter 8 and verse 1, what do we find? The blowing of the trumpets, 7 trumpets during the 7th seal. So there was this pause to answer the question in chapter 7. And then the 7th seal, 8 and verse 1, when he opened the 7th seal, there was silence in heaven for about half an hour. 7 seals, you have the 7 trumpets. I'm going to read verse 3. Then Revelation 8:3. Then another angel having a golden censer came and stood at the altar. He was given much incense. This is the altar of incense in the holy place, that he should offer it with the prayers of all the saints upon the golden altar, which was before the throne. So he has a golden censer. He was given incense to offer it with the prayers of the saints upon the altar, which was before the throne. After this, verse 5, he takes the censer, fills it with fire from the altar, and throws it to the earth. Then the 7 angels who had the 7 trumpets prepared themselves to sound. So let's go back to our chart. You have an introductory saying John sees heaven, God's throne. Then he, after putting his attention on heaven, he sees what's happening on the earth. This opening of the six seals, not the scroll, just the seals were being moved off the scroll. Then there's an interlude, and answering that question, where we have the 144,000. Then we have the climax, the history with the blowing of the seven trumpet. And you have the same thing again. Victorious scene with the heaven temple setting. Remember I showed you how John saw this vision in heaven of the angel going before the altar of the incense. Basic prophetic description. Revelation 8 and 7 to 9 and 21 tells us of the blowing of the seven trumpets. Then you have this interlude, spotlight on last day events, with the angel standing with one foot on the sand and with one foot in the sea, raise his hand to heaven. There would be time no longer in the days when the seven angels shall begin to sound. In each of these, the vision was not finished. Seven seal was not finished until you had that interlude. Under the opening of the seven seals, you have the seven trumpets. But when you look at 11, let me go straight there, 11 and 13. Well, let's back up a little. I'm going to share this with you because I want you to see this. Okay, here we go. All right, now, the seven trumpets are being blown. And that started, as I said, from chapter 8 and verse 7. So yes, the 9 and 21. Let's pick up at verse chapter 11. Under the seven trumpets, you had four trumpets, and then you had the three woes. Let me help you see the connection. Oh, come on now. Okay, I'm too far ahead of myself. Here we go. Sixth trumpet, the angels from the river Euphrates, Revelation 9 and 13. Sixth trumpet sounds. We don't have the seventh trumpet. There's this interlude, and that's what I was telling you about chapter 10 and verse 1. Mighty angel with the little book. John is told to eat the little book. He sees this thing with the two witnesses. Two witnesses are killed. Second woe is past. The third woe is coming. Then we go back. That was the interlude to the seventh trumpet. When the seventh trumpet sounds, the kingdom of God comes because things sort of wrapped up on this earth. So remember with the sixth seal, under the sixth seal, he saw the Son of Man coming and the islands, every mountain and island fled away. The rich man, the poor man, everyone runs, say, hey, the great day of his wrath has come, who is able to stand? But before we get to the seventh seal, we have something happening. We have the seven trumpets. Now, let's look. When we come to 11 and 14 now, the second woe is past. The seven trumpet sounds, loud voices in heaven. The kingdom of this world have become the kingdoms of our Lord and of his Christ, and he shall reign forever and ever. 24 elders fall land before God, etc., etc. That is the climax to history. 11 and 14, right up to 18. Here's one of the songs of Revelation that's now scrolling. Then there's a shift. 11 and 19. It is said this is the beginning, a shift between the, some say the historical and the prophetic, not fully. But 11:19 is the next victorious introductory scene, next temple scene. Temple of God was open in heaven. The ark of his covenant was seen in his temple. showing the importance of the law. Remember, the 10 Commandments were placed inside the ark. Lightnings, noises, thunderings, earthquake, great hail. Then we have the woman, the child, and the dragon. So you have an introductory scene in heaven. Then you have the basic prophetic description in history, chapters 12 and 13. Then we have an interlude, and let me go there. So after Revelation 11, 19, John's attention is directed back to heaven. I call it his faith is being strengthened from what he's about to see next. Then in chapter 12, he sees the woman, the child, and the dragon. How the dragon seeks to kill the child. Instead, she escapes. The dragon or Satan is thrown out of heaven. The woman, oh, come on, is persecuted. Notice again verse 17. The dragon is angry with the woman, referring to the church. You see that later on. And went to make war with the rest of her offspring, who keep what? The commandments of God and have the testimony of Jesus. And so in that sense there, it shows the importance of the law of God, because the law of God also determines how we should worship. Then we have the beast from the sea. So the dragon failed. So now what does he do? He uses individuals to come after the woman. So John says, well, it's the New King James says, I stood on the sand of the sea, but that's not fully correct. I was in 13 and 1. This is a better translation. I saw coming up out of the sea a beast that had 7 horns, 7 heads, and on its horns, 10 royal diadems. Where do we see that? Let's go back. Look at this. The dragon in verse 3, what does he have? Look at that. 7 heads, 10 horns, and the royal headbands or diadem, diademata, royal head, royal crown. When we come back to 13, what does the sea beast have? Watch their similarities. 7 heads, 10 horns, 10 royal headbands, same thing. So this is the emissary, the ambassador of the dragon, the sea beast. Now, but look at this here. The sea beast was like a leopard, feet like a bear, mouth like of a lion. Let's go. Daniel 7. Lion, bear, leopard. Same thing. Showing these two beasts are similar. That's what it's showing you. Let's go back to Revelation now. So the beast, one of its head is wounded. Its fatal wound was healed. Earth was astonished, followed after the beast. They worshiped the dragon because he had given authority to the beast. So in being in league with the beast, you worshiping the dragon. So they worship the dragon, but they also worship the beast. Who is like the beast? Who can make war with him? He is so powerful, etc., etc. Mouth was given to him, speaking things and great things, blasphemy. He was continued for 42 months. 42 times 7. What do you get? Let's calculate it. I'm going to pull out my calculator here. No. Yeah. Oh, I keep pressing the wrong thing. 42 months. There are how many days in a month? Times 30. 1260. 1260 days, 1260 years. Same thing. Same persecution as we saw earlier. And then in Revelation 13, we have the second beast who comes from the earth, two horns like a lamb, speaks like a dragon, exercises the authority of the first beast on behalf of him. So he's now working on behalf of the first beast, the sea beast. He performs signs and wonders on the earth. And he's performing these on behalf of the beast, that they should make an image to the beast who had the wound of the sword and yet live. And he was able to put breath into the image of the beast. And it goes on talking about persecution. You can't buy or sell except you have the mark, the name of the beast, the number of his name, and it goes on. Now, I said all of that to show you how this thing ties in together, talking about last day events. And then from chapter 14, verse 14 to 20, you have the three angels' message, but look at this. You have a spotlight or eschatological culmination, meaning end time. The time is climax, it's a climax to history. The earth is harvested. Let's go back to our original screen here. There we go. Share. Okay. Oh, share. Yes. So here we go. Let's look at it again. I want you to see this. Victorious introductory temple scene, basic prophetic description. Victorious introductory scene of heaven, temple setting, basic prophetic description in history, interlude on last day events, eschatological culmination. We are now here on number 4. Then when we come to number 5, Revelation 15 and 1 to 16 and 1. The 7 angels with the 7 last plagues. Verse 1 to 3, it starts off with a victorious introductory scene because it talks about those who had conquered the beast, his image, and number of his name. They're standing on the glassy sea holding harps of God. They're singing the song of Moses, the servant of God, and of the Lamb. And then it talks about their song. Verse 5, and after these things I look in the temple, the tent of the testimony in heaven. This is a Lexham English Bible, was opened. The 7 angels who had the 7 plagues came out from the temple. Judgment comes from the temple, dressed in clean, bright linen garments, girded with golden belts around their chests, similar to what we saw of Christ in Revelation chapter 1, verse 1 to 10. But this time they're bringing judgment and punishment. Verse 7, one of the 4 living creatures gave to the 7 angels 7 golden bowls full of the wrath of God who lives forever and ever. Temple was filled with the smoke, etc. Then we see the 7 bowls of the wrath of God, where the 7 plagues, we would call them, they poured out upon the earth. But it starts at heaven. It starts at heaven. And right after that, basic prophetic description and final judgment. Revelation, we're still in Revelation chapter 16, talking about how it's poured out. The bowls of wrath are poured out. Okay, let me start again. I mixed myself up. You have the introductory scene with temple setting. Revelation chapter 15, the first part. Then you have the basic prophetic description in final judgment, which is Revelation chapter 16 and onwards. Then you have an interlude, an exhortation or appeal this time. Revelation 16:15. Behold, I am coming like a thief. Come on, where's my mouse? Okay. Blessed is he, the one who is on the alert, who keeps his clothing, so that he does not walk around naked and they see his shamefulness. So some see that as another appeal. This is like a last appeal, because in 16 and 17, the 7th angel pours out his bowl on the air. A loud voice came out of temple from the throne saying, "It is done." It starts with the temple, it comes back to the temple. There are lightnings and sounds and thunders, a great earthquake, and so on and so forth. And then when we come over here, what do we see? Come on, where's my mouse? Okay, here we go. You have the judgment of the harlot. But before that, John is taken back in vision. Let me go back to 16 and 18. Wait, let me make sure. Yes, 16 and 18. Verse 18. And there were lightnings and sounds and thunders, and there was a great earthquake, as has not happened from the time humanity has been on the earth. So great as this way was the earthquake. I don't know if I recall this an introductory scene, a victorious temple introductory scene. Every island, verse 20, fled and mountains were not found. Large hailstones weighing about 100 pounds came down from the sky upon people. I would have probably started at 17. One of the seven angels who had the seven bowls came and spoke at me, saying, "Come, I will show you the judgment of the great prostitute, seated on many waters." And then John in verse 3 is carried away into the wilderness in the spirit, where he sees a woman on a scarlet beast. So Revelation chapter 17 and onward here, right on up to chapter 18, talks about the fall of Babylon. 18 talks about how people will cry over Babylon. They lament over her. But verse 4, which is an interlude, exhortation or appeal, 4 to 8, they're saying, is back to heaven. I heard another voice from heaven saying, let's go show you this so you can see it. Okay. And I heard another voice from heaven saying, so this vision is back in heaven. Come out of her, my people, that you may not participate in her sins and receive of her plagues. And it goes on as an exhortation. So it's not written in strictly chronological order, and you need to understand that. And then it goes to talk about after this invitation from heaven, what will happen at the kings and the great men, everybody would weep over her, etc., etc. Come on. Talks with all of this is the fall of Babylon. Then we go to chapter 19, verse 1 to 10. There's rejoicing in heaven because Babylon has finally been given judgment. You see that? Verse 4, the 24 elders, the four living creatures fell down and worship God who is seated upon the throne. And this is what they're saying. And then you have the wedding celebration of the Lamb. And then we come back to earth, so to speak, basic prophetic description and final judgment, where Christ comes on the white horse. Now, watch this. Where is it? When we read about the beast, when we read about the dragon, 7 heads, 10 horns, with 10 royal headbands. Look at verse 12. His eyes were a flame of fire, and on his head were many. There's no number. So these guys are usurpers to the throne with these golden headbands or diadems, diademata. Christ's own has no number, just says many. Apparently, it can be numbered. So he's showing that he is the true king. He is the ultimate one. And that goes on right on up to chapter 20 and verse 5. This final judgment saying. And then we have an interlude on appeal, exhortation, verse 6, 20 and 6. Blessed and holy is the one who has a part in the first resurrection. Over this person, the second death has no authority. Then there's the climax, eschatological end time judgment final from 20 and 7 to 21 and 4. So verse 7, here it is, Satan's release and defeat, to 21 and 4, judgment at the great white throne, new heaven and new earth. Now this here really should be pointing the individuals back to heaven. This really should be I guess maybe it's not, because it says a new heaven and the first new earth. So probably not. But look at verse 3, heavenly section. Here's a loud voice from heaven, from the throne, saying, the dwelling place of God is with humanity. He will take up residence with them. They will be his people. God himself will be with them, and he will wipe away every tear from their eyes. And it goes on. But when we come back, 21 verse 5, we go back to heaven, back to the throne room. One seated on the throne says, I'm making all things new. And there's this invitation again, some would say. And then you have the basic description, prophetic description from 21:11 to 22:5, or 11b as they say. Right on up is describing a new Jerusalem. Paradise is restored. And then you have the introduction again. But there's a sequence, and I'm going to let you see something here that you may not have seen before when studying it. Oh, I did not upload that one. Sorry about that. That's Christ in the lampstand. This is the top view of the sanctuary. Here you have the table of shewbread. They changed it. I think it was daily. They changed it. Here's the 7 golden lampstands, the menorah. When the temple in Jerusalem was captured by the Romans in AD 70, someone did an artist relief showing the soldiers carrying this off. It is probably never found. Here you have the altar of incense, where they took fire and threw it to the earth and brought judgment upon the people. But this altar of incense was also where the prayers of the saints was offered. This is the curtain or the veil that separated the holy place from the most holy place. In the most holy place on earth, you just had the Ark of the Covenant, 10 Commandments on the inside, the book of the law on the outside. Here you have the basin or the layer where the priest would wash his hands and feet. And here you have the altar of burnt offering where they offered the sacrifice. Here's another view of it. Altar of burnt offering. Here's the priest washing his hand. Here's the portable tabernacle before Solomon built the permanent one. Here's the table of shewbread, 7-branch lampstand. Here's the priest offering doing his thing with the altar of incense, presenting the sins of the people. He would sprinkle a little something here on the curtain from time to time. Here's the Ark of the Covenant with the 2 angels with their wings touching, overshadowing. This light is supposed to represent the glory of God. But of course, in heaven, you would have the actual throne. Now, and that's someone's concept of the 3 angels. The word angel in scripture can also be translated messenger. It may be angel, it may be messenger. Context determines. And as I said, here's the fall of Babylon, an artist's conception of the fall of Babylon. And here you have someone's conception of the great white throne judgment. But here's something else, and this is our last slide for this evening. I did a study in the New Testament on the word for worship. Which books talks more about worship than any of the others? Revelation. Look at that. It mentions it some almost 24 times. Actually, this is the entire Bible, not just the New Testament. If you just look at the New Testament, Where this yellow bar is at Matthew, you will see Revelation. So Revelation is all about God and his and the worship that he deserves. You see the counterfeit, Satan's counterfeit worship where he desires worship also. You have the triune God, Father, Son, and Spirit. You have the dragon, the beast, and the false prophet. You have the three unclean spirits. So whatever God has, Satan tries to make a counterfeit of it. And worship is an integral part of it. Let me quickly show you that. That will be the last one, definitely. I'm going to run a search. And I want you to see something. Here we go. I'm going to go to the Bible. Not the, that's most of you would use King James. I'll pull up the New King James for now. Worship. And here we have it. 3, 4. I mean, there are different words for worship, mind you. So let's not just focus on that. But let's restrict it just to the New Testament. Matthew is the second highest. And then I'm going to pull up a chart for you. Here we go. So you will notice here, Matthew's own is 12 times. John 13, Acts 14, Revelation 24. Revelation talks a lot about worship because that's what at the ending of time, what the issue will be like. Whom do we worship? And our worship is determined by our obedience in part. Now, in this case here, Romans has it more. I chose obey. Let's see. Obedience. Let's see what I get this time. Okay, Romans still has it here. Something isn't doing. Let me see something. Okay, 6 times here. Acts speaks more about commandments than any of the others. This is interesting whenever I run this. I'm always a little surprised over it. I want you to see something. New King James. Okay, yes. Crowns. Okay. When we come to Revelation, all right, here we go. This is saying 6 times. New King James Version, New Testament. Okay, something is off. I don't know what, but this is more than 6. There you go. I had it set to, it wasn't giving an accurate view that I needed it to. And so when I changed the settings, oops, where is it? Oh, that was search. When I changed the search setting, that's why I took it off. Crown, Bible. There we go. New Testament. Okay. I had to change this here to broad, so it will include everything, all instances of the word crown. And that is where I get the difference here. So when I create my chart now, that's what I'm looking for because it's going to pick up crown, it's going to pick up crowns, all of them. And that's where Revelation shines. So it says crown of life, it says crowns. So it would pick it up. And Revelation, it mentions it more than any of the others. In this case here, it's 8 times than the others. The others have it 1 or 2, and most of them probably dealing with the crucifixion. So that's another way to also understand Revelation. Look at words that appear commonly. Same thing with Daniel. Which words appear often in the book? And you will notice 2, 3, 4, 6, 9, 12, 14, and it didn't put in 19. For whatever reason. Okay. I would prefer to have these in order, but if for some reason it didn't put them in order. Nevertheless. That is a smart search. But Revelation is definitely concerned with the whole concept of crowns, with the concept of worship. Another thing, let's try something. Angel. I'm just trying out something. Ah, see that? Come on. 76 times. Angels are messengers. In Revelation, when you look at it, angel can mean messenger, as you can see, as I made mention earlier. You see that angels are playing an active role in the salvation of humanity, in helping as well as pouring out judgment as God's messenger. Except Revelation 12:9 is one of the exceptions. Says the dragon was cast out of heaven and his angels were cast out with him. But look at the rest. They all depicted, let's see, in a positive light. They're serving God, they're serving his people. The ministers are represented as angels. Well, it's 7 stars, but they're all in a positive light. They're working on behalf of humanity, behalf for humanity. They're working for God, punishing humanity. That's the only instance there. So this is something else you need to take note of, how God uses angels, the angels in heaven, to do his bidding. That's another focus of Revelation that can entail an entire study, the way they have operated in the book of Revelation. And so your questions, comments, I'm going to stop here. Those on YouTube, you can WhatsApp me or type your questions in the comments in the chat section on YouTube. Those of you on Zoom, you can ask a question or type it in. I lost my Zoom. I'll stop share for now. But I trust that you would have learned something and be motivated to do further study on the book of Revelation and look beyond what we have traditionally taught and go much deeper to see why is it that certain words are mentioned and why is it that certain things, what is the layer of revelation? Is there harmony? What's happening behind the scenes? Why do they mention this? in this order and then that order. That's what I sought to show you this evening. And we just touched on a few things. So like I said, if you're interested, you can come to Maranatha Church beginning Saturday morning. We will start 3 weeks of Bible prophecy and evangelism. So come on in. I'll be mixing the two together, and you will learn and understand how these things relate to us today. Some people say, well, that's just prophecy, that's the future. No, but the message is that God cares. And that's why I entitled my series, God Cares, Unfolding the Future, because it's designed for us today. And we see what God did in the past. We can see it gives us faith as to what he will do today. Okay, let's close with prayer. Father, thank you so much for everything. Thank you for your goodness and your love. I pray, dear Lord, that you will help us to continue to study, that we may understand, and as we understand, we may be transformed and we may share with others. In Jesus' name. Good evening. See you next week, Monday.